What do you think of the teal on here?
I think it helps it open up more. Like the train?
Yeah, like the train.
Do you like being an artist?
Yeah. Do you like being yourself?
A little bit.
Oh, why not a lot?
I don't really think about it.
Well, I don't really think about it either.
You know what's awesome?
What?
That washer over there.
Yeah. I'm so happy that you finally have a washer.
I just got a new washer.
I know Dad's happy too.
Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be interviewing my sister, a known artist in her area. She is an ENFP. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as Andrew mentioned, I'm an ENFP, and I am indeed his sister. I grew up here in Springfield, Missouri with Andrew, and then I moved to Memphis when I was 18 to go to art school, and I did that. And then afterwards, I went into education, surprisingly, and became an art teacher for a couple years. And I was a freelance artist for a few years and did like most of the things you can imagine artists doing. I did murals and commissions and paint parties at a paint and sip place. And now I'm back in the classroom after 4 years of being an entrepreneur. And I'm trying to balance both of those things. I also have a certification in biblical studies, and I'm a believer in Jesus. So that's me in a nutshell.
And of course, I'm an INTP. And the value you're going to get from this is understanding what ENFPs are like. Maybe if you're an ENFP, you can relate. Maybe you know some ENFPs. Then you know I'm an INTP. So you're also going to maybe see how an INTP relates to an ENFP, especially if they've known each other for 26 plus years. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask her some questions, and let's get going. All right. ENFPs are known for being all over the place. Are you like that?
Yes.
And what is it like? What is it like for you to try to focus or maintain a routine?
I think it's been difficult at different times in my life, and it also depends on the type of routine. I find that if I'm trying to establish a routine, I do best doing that when I already have something in my life that's consistent, that's not something that I am, managing. Like, for example, like a commitment, like a something I do like every day or every week. I have this I have to do at this certain time, and that creates like a good base for me to kind of build routine off of.
So it's like a sort of anchor.
Yeah, exactly. So, but if I were the one to facilitate that anchor, and it were just me by myself trying to do that, I've struggled with that. So if it's like, okay, every week at this time, I'm gonna go for a walk or like do some exercise or whatever.
Does it help you to have someone in your life that's more anchored naturally?
Yes. I was about to say it seems to work best. It doesn't have to be like work or something like that, but having someone that is depending on me to do that routine. So I do private lessons with art, and I teach classes in the community education program, as well as teaching high school right now, which is really full for me. That's really difficult. But when I'm just teaching private lessons or teaching classes at the same time every week, that is pretty comfortable for me. And I can kind of build a routine, like going to the gym or reading things I want to read. But I would say it becomes really difficult because I constantly like to, I don't like feeling like I'm a slave to a timetable.
Yeah, you know what's kind of funny is when we're sitting in the car, you're like, I'm going to go to the next station. No, that's fun. Let's go to the next station.
Yeah.
And you never settle on anything.
Or I just get really excited to listen to songs, and I'm like, listen to this one. And we listen for a few seconds, and I'm like, oh, okay, now this one. So
I like to stick to a song.
Yeah, so I like kind of the stimulation of lots of different things, and it makes routine difficult, but easier to do if I have some level of accountability, but not to the level that it's like overwhelming. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, you did. Okay. And on a similar note, how do you approach your relationships with people who are the opposite, like the ISFJs, or the INFPs, the ones are like myself?
Who are extremely routine?
Yes.
Like,
For example, they actually have to go out of the way to plan spontaneity.
Okay, like my friend Dusty. Okay. So I think thinking back on some of the relationships I've had with some of the control types, I think as Andrew has put it, the level of productivity and camaraderie we can develop is really dependent upon our individual maturity and our willingness to meet each other and compromise. So, for example, I was actually talking with one of my best friends today who we believe is, was it INTJ? Dusty? ISFJ, sorry. Yeah. And we were commenting on how a few years ago, when I'd be coming into town, I'm like, okay, I'm coming in the town during the summer. And she's like, great, I want you to stay with me. And then like weeks ahead of time, she'd be like, so what day and what time are you going to be arriving? And I'm like, I don't know. Why is this important? Because it's not like we were producing anything or had to be anywhere. And she was off work and I'd be off work. And so I didn't understand like why that was relevant, because it was like, I'm just going to get there and we're going to hang out. It wasn't like we were going anywhere. But over time, we were joking because she said that she has relaxed a little bit. And instead of just like texting me like, when are you going to be here? What time are you going to be here? She's like, do you know a general time of day? And that I can do that. I can get general times of day. Whereas today I was going over to her house, or it was last night, and I hadn't gotten a text from her asking when I would arrive. And I was like, that's weird. Let me text her, because I'm sure she wants to know. Maybe she got busy and she forgot. And so I was like, hey, I just wanted to touch base about tonight. I'll probably be there, between 9:30 and 10. And she was like, wow, a 30-minute time frame. That's pretty good. And it stormed, so I got there at like 10:30 because it was like I couldn't see through my car. But
and you also think it helps that you've known them for a long time, right?
Yeah, I know Dusty, and so because of like the commitment to the relationship, it's like not only do I want for her to have a good experience, and like I want to cater to her in a certain way, but I also know that there's space to be myself, and so I don't feel, while I am going to try to like be reasonable in compromising with her in a way that makes us comfortable in a productive way, I also don't feel the stress to be somebody I'm not. So that's an example of like a very like a long-term comfortable relationship. But I can say people who may be a control type that meet me now, I think I drive them kind of crazy, like especially if they're not very mature. And they
maturity is a big factor.
Yeah, and they drive me crazy too. But I think that I think that the way that she has handled it was wise, like to understand that there's a certain way that it is difficult for me, and that it's really also very hard for her to loosen up. And so I think meeting in the middle and her saying what general time of day, or kind of getting an estimate so that she feels more comfortable, but also giving me enough freedom, to determine things. And then I think too, deadlines are really good, like just in terms of like working on things together and projects. Like if there's like a calendar that's created with a timeline of what needs to happen and when, and then there's accountability for that timeline, I work really well that way, as opposed to, but not like over, so not like if it's like too many deadlines, I freak out. But if I just have like a general idea of when things need to be done, and kind of like get on them beforehand and have some accountability doing that, that's very helpful for me.
Okay. So being very specific is not so good with ENFPs. It's better to give them a general guideline.
Yeah, general guidelines are good. Yes.
And generally meet in the middle, if you can, with anyone, just
Yeah.
maturity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're an artist,
I am.
as you can see by the painting in the background. How do you approach that? Is it more conceptual, or do you focus on the details? What's going on there?
I think it's changed as I've grown and changed in my life. In high school or college, it was more just exploring the gift from a technical perspective, not so much creating my own meaning. Although, I was in AP art with my teacher in high school, and if you're in AP art or you've had that before, you know that you develop your own meaning and create work from that space. And I think I handled that really well. I made work about like my experience, working with the senior living community, and just like how I relate to that demographic. But it was still more about like appeasing an external source and trying to get like a good grade and like do well according to the standards that had been presented to me. Whereas now, being outside of academia, as far as like from a student perspective, I'm now like a mature artist, more maturing. I don't think that you ever really mature. Yeah. But more so than I was, as a teenager or in my early 20s. So now a lot of my work, as a believer, I mentioned, that I'm a believer, I'm a Christian, and a lot of my work is like guided by my relationship with God, and to certain degrees, different degrees. So like, one thing I do is I'll paint during worship, at churches, or I'll paint live at events, or I'll do what's called like prophetic painting, where like I'm praying and I'm asking like, okay, what are we painting? What does it mean? And I paint what I'm showed to paint. And then there are other times with my personal work where it's like I am actually painting something that I'm drawn to. And I've found that it works better for me to not think too hard about why I'm drawn to something and cognitively analyze it, because if I start to analyze it, it doesn't become fun anymore. And I really need it to be something that I can do spontaneously and enjoy and not overthink, because I think that that's what stressed me out about art making in college. But I think for that time frame in my life, that was like a good thing.
And I think it'd be interesting to contrast that to me as an INTP. I have my own art that I do. It's video and sound related stuff. Cookies. Cookies. And I think, interestingly, I'm similar. If I get too caught up in the details, I think I'm much more prone to getting caught up in the details than you. But even me, I think art in general and things of that nature, getting caught up in the details isn't necessarily good. I find that putting on different hats as you go through your creative process helps. Like I have like a general vision, and then I'll focus on the details for the sake of getting them right. Refinement. But then I switch back into the other mode. I don't think about the details all the time.
I do have something to say regarding that. So that, what I said about like needing it to be free and not overthinking it, that really pertains to like the front end of creating artwork. Mm-hmm. And on the back end, that's where I'm refining, focusing on the details, trying to understand the meaning, articulating the vision so that I can explain it to somebody and even possibly use it as like a speaking or teaching tool, as a visual aid. But I do have, if anyone's interested, I have artwork on my Instagram, Amy Beth Rice, and there's a portrait. There's a portrait that is on there of Masi Arias, who's like a fitness influencer. I love her. But I started the painting in 2014, and I considered it finished at the time. And looking at it from this age, in 2019, and I'm 30 now, I was like, I don't like the painting. I want to work back into it. And I wasn't sure what I would do. And I just worked back into it for like 2 or 3 hours for a show. And on my Instagram, I show like the before and after, like the 2014 version and then the changes. And it's a lot tighter. It's a lot more detail oriented. It's a lot more, I would say like definite. Like the lines are more definite as opposed to like loose and rough. And so I think that that's a testament to, I don't think I'm necessarily grown as an artist specifically in my skill. I think I've grown more as a person in my ability to refine and cultivate things to an end.
So in your general maturity, would you say you've gotten more able to focus on the details, or how does that work?
Yeah, I don't think I've just gotten more able to focus on the details. I think that before it was like I literally wasn't able to notice the details. I think I have a higher capacity than I did to identify where things needed to be more detailed, because it looked finished to me in 2014.
Yeah.
And even I can recognize that, like, growing up, because I'm the only ENFP in our house, and I would like clean the floor, and my mom would be like, "You missed a spot here and here," and I'd be like, "I literally didn't see that." So I think that's something that my type probably has to work on as you grow, is like not even just focusing on the details, but having the capacity to notice that they're there at all, to know like where they need to go to be considered refined.
Whereas I, in contrast, get lost in details naturally, and I have to focus on the big picture. So I'm kind of the opposite.
And I know our mother is that way too.
Yes.
And I would say
ISFJ, by the way.
it's easier to work with my brother on, like, to collaborate with him, because I've collaborated with both of them in different respects. With my mother more from an administrative side and putting on events, and with my brother more in production and that sort of thing, and actual creative products, and yeah, like this. And Andrew is more confident, I think, in his vision and where he wants something to go and how to get it there. And so I'm really good at kind of bringing him big ideas, and he's good at helping me know how to refine them.
Yeah, like I've noticed when we have a third person in the room, or we have with a group, and she's trying to describe something. She's really good at coming up with the big picture, the vision of it, and I'm really good at filling in the details as she speaks. In fact, like, she'll even call me and like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And I'll help her fill it out with the overall details.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah. So we grew up together, just in case you didn't notice. And I was curious, so, we went on these trips all the time. What was it about those trips you liked or didn't like?
What trips?
Like vacations.
Oh.
Yeah.
Trips. Well, let me try and remember the last time we actually went on a trip.
Just recently, we went to, I don't know where we were. We came back and there was this nice sunset, and I was really tired. And you don't remember?
No. We went on a trip?
Not a huge vacation, just recently, like a year ago, Dad, you and me. And
where did we go?
I don't know, but just what I was imagining. I'll probably cut this, but we'll see. Or maybe not. Full natural development of conversation between an ENFP and an INTP. So, yeah. Oh, do you have a good memory? Tell us about your memory.
Which one?
Just in general.
Oh, my memory.
Yeah.
No. Well, yes and no. I would say, like, I've been sad sometimes, and I'm really glad I kept journals, like, through my life. Or I'm also glad for Facebook memory popping up, and just for my friends, because I've realized I've had a lot of really close relationships in my life. I've been blessed to have a lot of, like, really good lifelong friends. And we've had really wonderful, like, hilarious experiences together, really great adventures. And I've forgotten a lot of them. But then I'll, like, remember specific things. And I've also found, I know, like, it's normal for everyone to learn through repetition. Except for Andrew, he can just look at things and know them. But most of us learn through repetition, I know, as a teacher. And so, like, the stories that we retell over and over between ourselves, or that I retell people, like, if something happens and I tell, like, 8 people, it creates the narrative in my mind, I think, even more so than the memory itself. So the narrative that I curate and reconstruct and give to other people becomes the official narrative, more so than my actual memory can sometimes.
And I think to some extent that's beneficial, because when I tell stuff, I tend to be very literal about what exactly happened, and it kind of kills the effect of the story or what happened. Whereas when you retell it, you almost make it more efficient and more effective.
And I love storytelling. So I think that's part of it. I'm like, I like to act out the parts, and I like to explain things and focus on like the jokes or the interesting pieces of information. So I think I remember things in stories really well. And I also have gone back and revisited memories, and with the hindsight of age. For example, my friend and I were talking the other day about why we were drawn to each other as like 12 and 13-year-olds. And I was able to go back in my memory and just like replay moments that I saw her where like there would be like a micro expression on her face, and I would think, she's not the way that everyone thinks she is. And I was intrigued, like why is she acting one way, and like I know there's something else underneath that.
You're really good at noticing those things, aren't you?
Yeah, I can look at an individual and see through them, but usually I see the best in them, which can be a problem too. So it's like I can generally see like who someone is, and generally just kind of how they see themselves and how they move about the world really quickly.
Which is why you're known as the advocate, perhaps. Tony Robbins is your personality type, you know.
But my memory sucks in general. Like don't tell me things, write them down, send me emails, I make lists. Like it's hard for me to remember details.
But you do love to research and read books, right? And learn. And
yeah, I love learning.
I mean, you're a teacher.
Yeah, I would say it's the details that are hard for me to remember. So like, for example, let's say we're putting on some kind of event, and we have like a conversation about like, this is what it means, and this is why we're doing it, and this is, you know, and I'm going to be like, yeah, totally. And I'll like build off of that. And then if you were to be like, I need you to do this and create this and you know, write this, those are things I'm going to have to write down, because it's like throwing pudding at a brick wall. And I've learned that more recently. And I think too, it's might be because I manage so many different types of things in my life with like teaching and art and lessons and traveling and all kinds of things, that it's almost like my brain is full. And I don't know if that's because of my type or a situational thing.
So your weakest, not your weakest, but your very last function is extroverted sensing. And so that is correlated. It's not exactly the same thing as your short-term memory. So like, for example, Dad, he'll notice things on the street just randomly that no one else notices. That's because he's really good at his extroverted sensing. So your memory limitations do have a lot to do with your type. Especially intuitive types in general are going to have worse memories on average.
That's comforting, because I often feel really bad.
But it's also not an excuse, and it is your duty to learn how to remember things, and even if you just need a system to do so.
Yeah, I think I've felt bad for not remembering things and really struggled with it. And but even when I was in high school, like I kept a planner and just wrote everything down, and that helped a lot. And now, just in the past year, I've started, like, I moved my calendar to my phone, and I've set reminders and alarms on my phone. And let me tell you, if you're an ENFP, it's life-changing. Like, just to have, like, a reminder, whether it be a person, like, I've seriously considered hiring an assistant, and I might do that for, like, heavier times in my life or something, because I need help in that area.
And I think that's applicable to a lot of types, although ENTJs and ESTJs, for example, just do that naturally. But it's definitely great, especially also for ESFPs. If you're an ESFP, that's also very relevant. Also for IPs, very relevant. Okay, so back to the topic we were just discussing. We were talking about people. So we know you like people, you love people, obviously. And something I've noticed is you've always just been able to walk up to someone and open them up right away. Is that just normal for you? How does that work?
Sorry, I've been talking about this with people recently too.
Yeah, it's a thing for ENFPs.
Yeah, well, I think I'm laughing because people find me like a safe space to confide in, and it's like they trust me pretty quickly, even people that don't normally trust people. Right. And I think that it's part of my type. I also think that it's my face. Because I think
that's true.
No, like I have really round cheeks.
No, like in studies they found that the shape of your face is correlated with how much people trust you. It's a thing.
Yeah, so I'm carrying a bit more weight than usual right now, and I carry a lot of weight in my face, and it's really round, and so I think I have like kind of like baby features, and so I might subconsciously be perceived like a young child, or have the characteristics of a young child, like that I'll be trustworthy and innocent. So I think, yeah, people, and also. I think maybe people can. I think I'm very non-threatening.
Yes.
I think people see me as non-threatening. I don't think anyone's ever seen me and been like, "Can't trust that girl." I think, yeah, no. I have noticed I have the ability to do that, and I think it's like almost like dogs and babies can tell when you're a good person. I think kids are drawn to me, and people are, sometimes I feel like, I don't know, there's almost like a magnet, and people just want to tell me things, or they feel comfortable with me quickly, and I love people in general. I really enjoy people and care about people, and I think that they pick up on that quickly, and a lot of times when they have something that's a secret or that hurts, they're not scared to tell me, and I've experienced a lot of difficulty in my life in different areas, and I'm pretty transparent, and I think that puts people at ease also. So
it's almost like you indulge yourself in other people, maybe.
I guess it depends on how you define indulge.
Like you would just enjoy, let yourself enjoy.
Yeah.
And I think I've noticed that just in general, ENFPs are like this just because you let yourself enjoy others. They tend to enjoy you. It's exactly. Reciprocity.
Yeah. Yeah, I do really enjoy people. Like when I was an entrepreneur and I didn't get out a lot. Right now it's kind of overwhelming because I'm out all the time. But when what are you doing?
I don't know.
when I didn't get out a lot, when I went to the grocery store, I would just like want to make conversation with everybody, and I'm still like that. If I'm not spent emotionally, but like. If someone's near me, I'll just be like, wow, these greens, they're great, or on Father's Day, I was on the card aisle and there were like 15 people on the aisle. And I was just like, this must be the busiest aisle in all of the store. And they were just like, yeah. So I definitely like identify within myself a need, like I want to interact with people. But I also have a limit as well.
Okay. And on that note, Your type is kind of known as being the mover and shaker in the world. You probably have seen yourself as sort of you tend to want to shake things up a bit.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
That's funny you say that. I didn't know that. But I do. Yeah. I didn't know that about myself.
Oh.
I mean, I didn't know that was part of my type.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I do find myself, when I was a kid, like a child, I was actually diagnosed with oppositional defiance disorder, which might be surprising for anyone that knows me now. But I do think it was like a spiritual, because when I shifted spiritually, that wasn't there anymore. But I do find like I'm often, if something is a bit reserved, or I find myself wanting to challenge the status quo easily, or I find myself wanting to do things differently and asking myself, okay, how could this be better? How could this be more interesting? How could I do it in a way that's unusual, or more effective, or more creative, or more multidisciplinary? So yeah, I think I come into a system, I'm often critical of that system to see if it's like actually productive, not just for the sake of being critical, but for the sake of improvement.
Okay, and it's kind of similarly, when it comes to being true to yourself, as not buying into what society says or whatever. Like, for example, you were telling me about a painting, like, oh, I did a Lady Gaga painting and it was this popular, whereas you find other stuff more natural and relevant to your personality. Mm-hmm. How do you manage that dynamic between what others want and what you feel is authentic to yourself?
It depends on if they're paying me or not. Of course, if I'm being commissioned, I'm going to listen to the vision of the person who's hiring me to do whatever I'm doing as an artist. And like on the job, you know, I try to fulfill what I'm supposed to do to the best of my ability. I'm trying to think of more examples like in my life where that matters. I think I try to strike a balance a lot of the time.
You know, like what kind of car you drive? How much do you care about that? Or
Oh, no. It's really important to me
how you dress?
to do it like I want to do it within the bounds of appropriateness. So, you know, I definitely know some creatives who like go above and beyond. And I think part of like self-expression for me is like, I wouldn't say that I'm like a high energy person. And so like a lot of things just aren't super, like I enjoy them, but I don't put a lot of energy into them. So for example, like my makeup or how I dress, like I'll go all out and do exactly what I want to do and have fun some of the time. And I do like to kind of be different and like just do what I want to do and not necessarily what's trendy or what is expected. But I think I do it strategically. Like, okay, where am I going? What's appropriate? And what can I do within this space that's appropriate, but also like fun for me? And yeah, it is important to me. But it's like, I'm not going to go broke or lose sleep either.
Do you care about how other people dress or how they come off?
No.
Classic ENFP. Okay. Wrap up a little bit. So different types, some people argue that personality types aren't a thing, but if you look at my sister, for example, and compare her to me, and if you compare all ENFPs to her and compare all INTPs to me, do you think that they're going to be ENFPs who are exactly like me? Maybe occasionally. I'd highly doubt it, though.
I think there's a lot of factors, and this is more like a base that is built upon by a lot of other elements.
It's like it correlates. Like if you're a type, you're more likely to be this way than this way. That's generally how it works. So if you know someone's type, you can really know quite a bit about them and how to, what they're generally going to be like and how to quickly adapt to that person and understand them and realize, oh, they're acting like this because she's all over the place because she has a hard time focusing like all ENFPs do.
That's not fair, though. I can focus.
Well, also I should say ENFPs are insecure about being able to focus. So,
but no, like I can.
No, I believe you. I mean, just
well, then why would you?
Less so than say me.
Well, no, I can focus for like hours at a time on one thing.
But you have to really care about it.
Yeah, but there are lots of things I care about.
Which during conversation, okay.
Like my job makes me care about it.
Here's a good ending question. You're naturally all over the place in conversation.
Yes.
So what is it that makes you naturally all over the place in conversation, whereas you can focus for hours at a time when you're paid or you need to?
I think that when I'm excited and I don't necessarily have like a significant objective to an experience, then I'll get all over the place. Because I allow everything of interest to me to catch my attention, whether that's like a question I have or a different subject. And then I'll be really focused if there's a very niche concept that I'm having a conversation about, or there's a specific objective I'm trying to reach. Then I can be very focused. So like when I used to work out a lot, and I would memorize like a certain schedule I had, like leg day, back, whatever. And I would be very focused the whole time, and take little breaks, and rest or whatever. Or if I'm painting, I can paint for hours at a time, but I'll also like get up and like stand and look at it for a minute. It's not like I'm just like this for hours. So I'm focused on one thing, but I'm attacking it in different means over that span of time. And that's how I can break it up and stay focused. So I don't get distracted by something else.
So it's kind of similar to how you set up structures that keep you focused.
Yes.
Okay. Very interesting. All right. Well, classic, I don't know if she's a classic ENFP or not, but example of an ENFP, my sister, very cool person. If you like her Instagram.
Amy Beth Rice, amybethrice.com. On Society 6, my online shop, I've got bags, t-shirts, wall tapestries, paintings, of course. That's society6.com/AmyBeth art. So thank you for having me.
High five.